welcome back to Bojangles Coliseum. We've got another edition of Checkers Pregame Live right here from the Connector as the Charlotte Checkers get set to do battle with the Toronto Marlies. He's Miles Conrad. I'm TJ Chillot. We're happy to have you alongside. We've got a lot to talk about here in the next 20-25 minutes, including last weekend where the Charlotte Checkers, well, they pulled off a very successful trip to Hershey, Pennsylvania, earning 3 out of a possible 4 points. And really, it all started on Saturday night. Let's go ahead and roll the highlights from Saturday night against the Hershey Bears. When you talk about that Saturday night, even though the Checkers didn't get on the board first, it was Hershey. They ended up getting a goal from Brad Hunt. It was really the Checkers who took control of that game in the back half of the first period and the early parts of the third. John Leonard with a 3-point night, including 2 goals and an assist. Sandis Vilmanis ended up having himself a great weekend as well with 2 points and continuing the Checkers' strong power play. They ended up going 2 for 4 on the night on the Powerball power play. So the Checkers had a great Saturday against the Hershey Bears, ultimately winning in that game by a final score of 4-2. In goal, it was Ken Appleby who turned aside a total of 22 of the 24 shots that he ultimately faced. So the Checkers get the victory in game number 1 last Saturday in Chocolate Town. Turn your attention to Sunday. We'll go ahead and get you the highlights from the game on Sunday, which didn't go the Checkers' way, although they managed to get a point out of this one. It was a shootout loss for Charlotte. And unlike the night before, this time the Checkers did get on the board first. It was Riley Bezo, his first of the year, with a beautiful tipped goal right out in front, assisted by Ben Steeves and Michael Benning. We're going to talk a little bit more about Michael Benning here in just a little bit. But the Checkers fell into a 3-1 hole in that game. They managed to battle their way back with a goal late in the second from Michael Benning, and then Ryan McAllister evening things up in the third. They managed to force overtime, and though nobody could find the back of the net during that short 5-minute 3-on-3 overtime, we were forced to go into a shootout, and that is where Hershey ended up getting the victory on the final shot of the shootout. Pierre-Eric Dubé, who continues to just be a thorn in the Charlotte Checkers side, ends up with the game winner in that one. Cooper Black was handed the loss on the game. He ended up turning aside a total of 12 of the 16 that he saw. So overall for the Charlotte Checkers, a good weekend for them up in Chocolate Town. As they end up getting a win on Saturday, Miles, they end up forcing the game. What I really liked is the fact that they did fall into that 3-1 hole. They battled their way back to tie it, force overtime. There weren't too many opportunities throughout that entire weekend where it really looked like they were outmatched.
No, and really, you look at that second game, only allowing 16 shots against the young goaltender. Defense stepped up huge there. Obviously, like you said, tough going down early, but this team has been resilient all year long, TJ. Whether they go into the second period with a lead or they're down one, the second period has been really strong for this team all year, and the third period as well. Lots of impact guys as you go down this roster, man. I mean, really, you're getting scoring from all aspects of this team. It's going to be huge coming into a massive matchup this weekend.
And perfect transition there. Let's talk about this weekend. A very good Toronto Marlies team is coming to Bojangles Coliseum starting here tonight. Both teams identical 6-1, 0-1 records. Both teams, really, the story on both sides is special teams. We talked about the Charlotte Checkers power play. They have a power play goal in each of their first 8 games. They're converting at a league-high 40.5%, which is just gaudy. I mean, that is outstanding. But they're going to be going up against a team on the other side who has yet to allow a power play goal against in Toronto. The best penalty killing unit in the American Hockey League, converting at 100%. So special teams seems to be the story of this one.
No doubt about it, TJ. And you look, I mean, even last weekend, 3 of 6 on the power play on that weekend against Hershey, against a very good penalty kill that the Bears have. They're going to get tested even more this weekend. Now, with that, TJ, Toronto does not take a lot of penalties. So I think that you have to add that little asterisk to this stat here. But that also tells you Toronto plays a fast game. They play a clean game. And you're going to have to probably beat them 5-on-5 more than anything this weekend.
And I think that's something head coach Jordy Kinnear would be very happy with if he can play 5-on-5 for most of this weekend, because you're absolutely right. This is the second least penalized team in the American Hockey League, the Toronto Marlies. They play a disciplined game. They play a clean game. They don't spend a lot of time in the box. So while, yes, they have not allowed a power play goal in 20-some-odd chances so far this year, it is one of the smaller sample sizes across the league. Honestly, 8 games played is one of the fewer numbers. The Charlotte Checkers in their own division, the only team that has played single-digit numbers so far in terms of games played this year. Everybody else is 10, 11, and even 12. So the Checkers got to catch up to some teams, and the same thing for Toronto. Just fewer games so far, and they're starting off very disciplined. So that brings me to my Hendrick Acura keys to the game. What is it going to take for this Charlotte Checkers team to take the victory against Toronto? And number one, for me, it's the face-offs. One thing that I saw in the Bridgeport series, in the Hershey series, that I didn't see in the Cleveland series, the one series where the Checkers had their first and only regulation loss, was face-offs. The Checkers have been doing a great job on the face-offs, and it's going to mean something here tonight even more so, simply because of the fact that they need to control the zone if they're going to be playing 5-on-5, and if they're on special teams. Whether they're on the kill, they want to win those draws and make sure they can get those clears. If they're on the power play, they want to make sure they win those draws and keep the puck in the zone and start from there. I think face-offs are going to be very important because the pace of play is going to be controlled by whoever owns the time of possession battle, and I think face-offs are going to lead into that. My second key to tonight's matchup against Toronto is limit shots. You mentioned it there, 16 shots against Cooper Black against Hershey on Saturday. They also allowed only 12 shots against Cooper Black a couple weekends ago. The Checkers are doing a great job limiting shots once again. I think this is a carryover from last year where they were one of the fewest shots against team in the league because they block, they get in shooting lanes, and they force guys to the outside to those areas where shots are so low percentage that their opponents aren't even taking them. The Checkers are going to need to do a nice job of that here tonight just to make sure that they control the pace of play. Those first two keys, the face-offs as well as the limiting shots, is really indicative of a bigger overall look at this game. It's control the pace of play. That's really, and they're both going to lead into it. And my third key, the second period. Win the second period. Both of these teams are very good in the second period. Charlotte has allowed 4 goals against in the second period while scoring 14. That's a goal differential of plus 10. On the other side for Toronto, they too have 14 goals scored in the second period of games so far this year. They've only allowed 5 goals against in the middle frame. So it looks like when you take a look at that with the Checkers plus 10 differential, Toronto with a plus 9 differential, whoever wins the second period is likely to win this game. So those are my 3 Hendrick Acura keys to the game: face-offs, limit shots, and win the second period. So as we get down to an individual level, Miles, when you take a look at this roster, who's someone that you got your eye on this weekend?
Well, there's so many names. Like I said earlier, TJ, you're getting production from every aspect of this team. I mean, you look at a guy like Trevor Carrick, right? He's third among active defensemen right now in the AHL points-wise. The guy I'm looking at this weekend to make a huge impact, who might be a little bit of an unsung hero this year, is Kyle Criscolo. Criscolo, you talk about zone time, possession time. TJ, watch tonight what Criscolo does, whether it is on special teams or just entering in the zone, keeping possession time. He is huge, and when he shows up on the score sheet, he's usually setting somebody up, but he is always in the action. Kyle Criscolo is definitely a name to watch all weekend long.
Talk about a great offseason addition, and he's really been helping this team out. One of 4 Charlotte Checkers to be averaging at least a point per game through the first 8 games. For me, it's Mike Benning. I'm really liking what I'm seeing out of the second-year defenseman out of Denver University. 7 points in his last 5 games. He obviously had the 3-assist night back here at Bojangles Coliseum 2 series ago, but he had himself a good weekend as well up in Chocolatetown in Hershey and taking on the Bears, moving the puck around, scored a goal on Sunday to tie the game, to bring it within 1. It was the 3-2 goal for Mike Benning, but the defenseman's moving the puck. He's got great hockey IQ, and he's not leaving the Checkers at risk either. A lot of times with defensemen, it's a double-edged sword, right? Like if they are playing strong offensively, you got to go, okay, well, which of their defensive responsibilities are they neglecting to make that happen? I haven't seen that with him. I haven't seen that with Trevor Carrick either, who's continuing his point streak. 7 points now. He's got himself to start the year, a 7-game point streak. But Mike Benning, the youngster, is really slipping into a nice role. And we talked about it a little bit during the last Checkers pregame live, and I mentioned it a little bit on the broadcast as well, that one of the offseason moves that I thought might hurt the Checkers the most was losing Lucas Carlson and his offensive defensive capabilities and how he moved the puck at the blue line. So far, between Benning, who's stepping into that role, and Trevor Carrick, who's come over and returned to Charlotte, those two guys are really filling in nicely, if not even better, and are a big reason why they're off to a hot start.
Absolutely, TJ. And again, man, we've talked every show about this team getting production from everybody. Last year, it just felt like the team was having to rely on a Lucas Carlson, Rasmus Asplund. Now you're getting guys, Ryan McAllister providing goal support. You go down this list, everybody's scoring goals. Like you said, I mean, how many players are on point streaks right now? I mean, this team is cooking. This is going to be the toughest matchup both of these teams have faced all year. And TJ, to me, this is going to feel like a playoff series this week. And I have the feeling that it is going to be who's going to play the cleaner game, who's going to stay out of the box, possession, like you'd mentioned. And these are just two excellent teams. Hopefully we might get a playoff series between these teams down the line, man. But I think it's going to be intense in the Coliseum.
I think we are going to see a playoff-type game, but I really expect to see a chess match. Yes. I mean, this might even be 4D chess, the way these two teams are going to be playing. When you look at the Checkers and how positive they've been offensively this year, and then you look at Toronto and their strong suits, it's defensively.
Yep.
So I really think that these two, the way they balance and the way their skills match up, it's going to be a very interesting game. I would not be surprised if we have 2 games that go to overtime, or at the very least 2 games that are decided by 1 goal. I think it's going to be very tight. Toronto's a great defensive team. They don't allow goals, whether it's 5-on-5. They certainly don't allow goals on the penalty kill. The Checkers are going to have to get it done in many different ways, and we've seen that all year. I think this is one of the earliest challenges that they're going to have, and one of the best challenges they're going to have simply because of that. One thing that I really like about this team on paper is they're resilient, and whatever situation has been thrown at them, they've seemed to have an answer.
Yes.
If they take a 3-1 lead, and then all of a sudden let their team creep back in, they still end up getting the win. If they fall into a 3-1 hole, they battle their way back to force overtime like we saw this past weekend. So this is a new test, a different type of test this weekend, going up against a very defensively sound team.
Yeah, how are these teams going to react to this? Like you said, it's the 2 biggest challenges these teams have faced all year long. And I think, especially for the Checkers, Coach Jordy Kinnear loves games like this. This is the litmus test for his team. Toronto's going to really see how good their penalty kill is because, again, the Checkers' power play has been lethal all season long. I mean, I've been juiced up all week, TJ. This is going to be an excellent 2-game series.
I'm excited, and, you don't often see a rivalry vibe out of 2 teams that are not in the same division, but I think that's what we're going to have by the time Sunday wraps up and that second game of the season. I think that's going to bode well for the next time these 2 teams meet when they do up in Canada. So it's going to be really exciting. And speaking of excitement, we've got a lot going on inside Bojangles Coliseum, not only tonight, but also tomorrow. So tonight, Saturday, Star Wars night. It's not May 4th, so not May the 4th be with you, but maybe November the 9th be with you.
Sure.
It's Star Wars night here at Bojangles Coliseum for Saturday. Tomorrow, Military Appreciation Night presented by our friends at Renewal by Anderson. And we've got a great ticket package, and there are not many left. I was just talking with Paul Brannicky, our VP of Communications. We were talking about the availability that we have on these. There is not many, so make sure you head to charlottecheckers.com, get your tickets. I've got an example of the hat right here. It's a good-looking beanie. It's a good-looking toque. It's a good-looking toboggan for those of you from Canada who might be tuned in. And Miles, I know you like hats.
Supporting the troops as well. It's a great beanie. Just great weekend in general. Star Wars nights are always a big-time deal here. The Military Appreciation Day is always such a special day here in the Coliseum. And not only do you get a ticket to the game, but you can get
Characters going to be floating around. I failed to mention that, but the 501st is here. They're going to be walking around. You're going to see all your favorite Star Wars characters on the concourse. So if you're a lot going on inside the building, not only with Star Wars, but also our military appreciation tomorrow, plus what we've been talking about this whole time, everything going on the ice is going to be a great battle. It's going to be a great test between these two teams. So, Miles, if you had a prediction, what do you think tonight's game is going to go to?
TJ, I'm going to go 3-2 Checkers in overtime. I think you're right on the money there with a tight, close game. I think we're going to see goals early because in that second period, like you mentioned, both these teams are going to lock down. There's not going to be a lot of room for anything, much like you're out on Independence for 77. That's probably going to be the second period here, locking down. Third period, sort of same thing. I see a 3-2 Checkers victory here. I cannot wait.
I'm going to be a little tighter than you. I think it's going to be a 2-1 final. I can predict Charlotte just outlasting some kind of onslaught in the final couple minutes of the third period, surviving this one. Defense is going to be at their best. Goaltending is going to be at their best on both ends of the ice. I think it's going to be a really close game. It's going to be that chess match that we talked about. So,
yeah, and first goal, all important this weekend. I mean, you have to, even though we've seen the Checkers dig their way out of some holes that they've dug themselves, but man, this is a Toronto team. You want to silence them immediately because great defensive team. We haven't talked a lot about their offense, and that's very, very powerful as well, TJ. So first goal, hugely important here for the Checkers. I think it could be the difference maker.
Well, it's going to be tight. We know that. It's going to be a great game. We also know that. Make sure, charlottecheckers.com, you get your tickets. We've got the beanie, $45. That's for tomorrow's game. That gets you the beanie and the ticket in the gold or attack level. But, of course, we've got Star Wars night here tonight. That comes first. charlottecheckers.com is the place to get your tickets. For myself and Miles, well, we're not going to be back for a little while because after this series, this is really your last chance to get a good look at the Charlotte Checkers until after Thanksgiving. We are back for Black Friday and then on that Saturday, and that is the date of our next Checkers pregame live. It'll come at you 11:30, November 30th. We're back on the air at 2 o'clock as the Charlotte Checkers host the Iowa Wild. They're not only going out of division, they're going out of conference for that one. So make sure you get your tickets for this weekend and join us in a couple of weeks for Checkers pregame live. He's Miles Conrad. I'm TJ Chillot for our producer, Justice Wallace. Have a great night, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. Get your tickets. We'll see you all here at the Bowplex.